This is your not so critical update for Friday, August 3rd. Today, stop using Chrome. Now! Australia is watching everything. And online trolls really are just assholes. And now your hosts, Mike Sutton, Peter Lowe, and Jon Cohen.
This is going to be a fun episode, Peter.
I'm looking forward to it, yeah.
Different than what we normally do. We've got some fun stories. You just heard the introduction.
The same but different.
Same but different.
Yes.
But what's going to make
Very
this
exciting.
so great is that we actually have a guest. This is our friend Jon Cohen. Thank you for joining us today, Jon.
Thank you for having me.
We got this hooked up.
That's the way to do it, Jon. That's it. Thank you for having me. I'm so
Very
pleased to be
professional.
here. Great.
You're not on
Very
CNN.
Professional.
Very professional.
No, right. I'm not on NBC. No
Not yet,
tie,
anyway.
no suit.
So
It's
we
fine,
all
it's fine.
three of us used to work together.
Yeah.
You went off to do your own thing. This is our reunion. We're going to talk about some fun stories. You've got some expertise in fintech. You've got some expertise in privacy and security. Obviously, we've got Peter here, and then I just tag along because I know marketing and have a little bit of background in IT, but whatever. I'm just here to cause trouble. Should we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's do it.
All right. I hate to do this. I hate to do it again. But we're going to start with the T-Mobile breach. This is the second time we've talked about it. And I think the first time we talked about it, we referenced the 7 stages of grief during a cyber attack. And they were shock, denial, anger, and bargaining through to...
Acceptance, I think. is the last
We were still very early in the story and we knew it was going to change. Every time we talk about a breach, we say we're not, it's too early to talk about it. And that's exactly what happened here. So the T-Mobile breach, if you remember, we talked about how I think it was 40 million records were breached. And these were people who had filled out credit card applications with T-Mobile, whether they were accepted or not. So some of them were customers, some of them weren't. But anybody who filled out a credit card application with T-Mobile was compromised here. And the new information that we have is going to come from Jon. You had the chance to talk to somebody talked to an insider. We have a secret source. What have you got, Jon?
So as soon as I heard about the T-Mobile breach, I was obviously, as you guys, extremely interested. One, from the wild claims that were made by a Twitter user. I believe his handle is undoxed. And he was claiming that 100 million accounts, including social security numbers, full names, addresses, phone numbers, PINs, anything and everything was included in this breach. So I actually reached out to this anonymous person, and I asked if he was willing to potentially hand over the data to Troy Hunt over at Have I Been Pawned? I'm pretty sure, Peter, you're extremely familiar with Troy Hunt. And I have a quote here from him, basically reassuring me this. So all previous and current T-Mobile customers are affected, so they can take whatever precautions they need to now. It's not a matter of if they were affected in this breach, all customers were affected. And he continued to tell me that he will not be providing this data to Troy Hunt because of that, and I imagine the value of the data itself.
So don't even bother trying to look it up.
Yeah.
You have been breached is basically
Yeah.
the bottom line here.
Yeah,
That's
exactly
awesome.
right.
So I mean, everybody
man.
would know, right? If you apply, so is it all T-Mobile customers or T-Mobile customers who had applied for this credit card? I think that was the original.
According to this person, all T-Mobile customers, prepaid, postpaid, credit, whatever, are
Which
affected.
includes me, by the way. I
Interesting.
have been a T-Mobile customer.
I also was a T-Mobile customer. So I think, common things to do if you were a part of this breach, or you suspect you were, is to freeze your credit reports and reset PINs. If you want to go as far as to change your phone number, you can do that as well. but it is a terrifying amount when we're talking about 1/10 of a billion, according to this person.
Yeah.
And this is
Troy's going to get his hands on it anyway, by the way. Troy Hunt will get that data eventually. I mean,
one way or another.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is literally everything you would need to apply for credit. Doesn't get worse than that.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back if I ever have been a T-Mobile customer, because companies change all the time. I feel like my first phone company was Singular, that later got bought by AT&T, and I think I just was with AT&T forever since then.
Does that count though? Is it, like a previous data? Are you technically? I don't know. Sorry, if you were a Singular customer, and then if T-Mobile bought Singular, would all that data be there as well? I suppose it's like, yeah. Any acquisitions by AT&T
exactly.
or
data
rebranded
absorbed
stuff or third parties white labeling, everybody's going to be. Yeah, I'm questioning this number about 47 million. I've seen so many different numbers there: 70 million, 100 million. What is it? 47 million in this particular article. It's a lot, whatever it is. But
and according to this source, it's every T-Mobile customer.
It is over 100 million people.
And is this an anonymous source or is he a named source?
The only name I got is this person's, not his, their Twitter handle.
Their Twitter handle.
And we do not know if this is the attacker. We don't know if this is just a friend of the attacker or a colleague, right? Like, we don't know. But they were extremely confident.
And it's not a lot of change from the original reporting, which was that all of this credit card application information was leaked. I think the number maybe changed. The original story, I think we saw, said 40 million. Now it's 100 million or more. But that's scary.
I'm very curious about the how trustworthy this guy is and how true it is. I think it's in his interest to come across. I'm surprised that he actually responded to you, John. Not that because you're not a high profile person, but just the fact that I imagine they would be getting a lot of messages right now from like all sorts of people, CNN, Forbes, and you, and he still replied. So I feel like maybe it's in his interest to sell it. So I don't know.
So a bit of an interesting detail is, a lot of people are speculating that this data is actually coming from past breaches. T-Mobile, shame on them, have been, I believe, breached 5 times in the last few years, which is crazy. Yeah. But people are speculating that the data that is being sold or is up for sale currently, or maybe not even currently, maybe it was bought already, is actually recycled data. The problem here is that T-Mobile has now come out and said that, yes, X amount of customers are fully affected. So credibility is all over the place. And interestingly enough, yes, I am just a small fish in the barrel, and he answered me, but this is the same account that is being referenced in that article that we just saw. So it's very interesting. Looking forward to seeing what the next stage of the breach is, as you said.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll be able to talk about it again next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Right.
So, like, for a long time, Sony was like the example of the big hack, right? Where do we guess this fits in terms of either largest or most severe hacks in history, breaches?
That's a good question.
Of known breaches.
I'm sure there's a timeline out there. In fact, I think that the Halloween Point has like a kind of like, biggest breaches.
So I could have answered this question with some research before the show. All right, thanks, Peter.
Only hardcore researchers would know that, though, Mike. I mean, this is high level security.
I don't feel bad about it.
Like professional. No. No, what I mean is, I think that this is the thing is that there's different risk factors involved. So there are massive breaches, some of which are just like compilations of different other breaches that are kind of years old, and There was one which was a spam thing and it had like 1 billion records in it, which
Right.
was just kind of, but it was just email addresses and half of them didn't work and were years old or whatever. Then there's breaches like this, which includes credit card numbers and pins and really sensitive data. So even if it's not the biggest, it's still one of the most, one of the worst, I would say.
Yeah,
I think,
probably doesn't get a lot worse than that.
Some medical records and you got the gold standard. So
Right,
yeah,
bingo.
bronze place or silver place, but
Yeah.
keep working at it, T-Mobile. You can
So
do it.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna love this, Peter, but I think it starts to go back towards my ongoing argument that if everybody's breached, nobody's breached. So what are you gonna do? Who cares? Is it even a story at that point? Like, oh boy, everybody's social security number is public. Great.
That just means that you could impersonate anybody. I mean, that's not a good thing, dude. I mean, that's bad.
But then I'm at no greater risk than anyone else.
I don't think it reduces anybody's risk. It's, oh my God, dude.
It spreads it out across everybody on the planet. Now I have, statistically
John,
0% chance.
Back me up here. I've got someone else on here too.
I think the biggest problem, you guys actually spoke about this a couple of episodes ago. It was privacy by design, security by design. And when a company as large as T-Mobile is getting breached because of a configuration or a faulty configuration on an internal application, according to the attackers, this is not privacy by design. This is not security by design. It is the complete opposite. And when companies aren't taking these approaches to their tech stack or their development cycle, this is what's going to happen. Eventually, we're all going to be in a breach. And a good thing to assume that many security professionals, cybersecurity professionals, privacy professionals like to think about and kind of play with as a thought exercise is, these are just the breaches we know about.
Yeah.
We should all assume that we have been part of a breach. This is for, just better operational security as an individual. You should assume that any password you've reused or even used just once will eventually or already is part of a breach. Your email is part of a breach. Your social, your date of birth, if you're European, your personal number, all of these things have most likely leaked, and we need to take the precautions necessary to protect ourselves. So I don't think that it lessens in Mike's point, that it lessens any of the points on security, self-awareness. It's just a total mess out there. So not to be pessimistic, but we've all probably been hacked, and
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, mate, that on this show, like yeah. We
Resignation and futile nihilism.
Yeah.
The splash of cynicism.
I'm glad you agree with me, John.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Like security by design, I think this came up during the Colonial Pipeline hack. As somebody on Reddit, Reddit's obviously a credible source, especially some anonymous Redditor, but said, well, this is why every company should create their own systems. That's insane. You're just going to have all these different hacks.
That's bonkers. I mean, it's okay. So the concept of privacy by design is that you don't suck up all this data in the first place, and it's not there to be breached. And you only use what you really need. And when you do have stuff that you really need, you take proper care of it in every aspect, and you think about it from that point of view. It's happened with security, right? So years ago, people didn't really think about security very much, and then everybody realized that everything we're using is completely insecure. So then they started working security into development projects from the ground up. So they started off, with security tests, and you have libraries which are used, which are, prevent SQL injection attacks and cross-site scripting attacks. And, I'm talking about web development here, but there's lots of other techniques and stuff that's used for other things as well. But it's just the way that security has become embedded into software development as a thing, then that needs to happen with privacy as well. And that's privacy by design, or privacy by default, PBD, as as I like to call it.
But we're
Sorry,
about
man.
to talk about a story where a company would argue, I need all that data. I am only collecting the data that I need. I need all of it.
All right, come on then. Let's check out the next story and see if that is
All
really
right,
true.
here we go. You're up, Peter.
Yeah, why you suddenly need to delete Google Chrome. So I was discussing this a little bit earlier, and I really don't like this clickbait headline at all. And I don't. It's an article talking about Google being crap at privacy, and oh my gosh, they're trying to introduce new technologies which are terrible for privacy. And goes, you know, the interesting thing to me was that this story has arrived on Forbes.com. They said at the beginning something like, oh, something you probably didn't hear about, or something that wasn't in the headlines, blah, blah, blah. But like, this has been happening for ages. And it's just, I love the fact that Forbes are picking up on this stuff, because it's reached a certain point in the public consciousness that it's actually become newsworthy to such a major publication like Forbes. So yeah, that's the notable thing for me.
Yeah, Google.
You're being tracked. Who's surprised by this?
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked about Google's Flock, right? The effort to eliminate third-party cookies and provide only aggregated anonymous cohort data. And it's, I guess, pending failure. It hasn't totally happened yet, but it's not in great shape. And we talked about, what was the story we talked about with Apple, where they had a unique identifier for each user, but it was the same identifier of the phone. So it wasn't, or it was supposed to be an anonymous identifier, but it turned out that it was actually a unique identifier that you could track back to a certain person. Like, there's no safe haven. It's all futile.
I don't know, man. I think there's people with more energy than us that are fighting the good fight. There's a particular, so here's a little tangent here. In the UK, the NHS, there's a division of it called NHS Digital, and they wanted to make all medical records for everybody in England available to be bought by private companies. And there were certain rules, like it had to be for medical research, and you know, they weren't allowed to share it with people, and there were certain categories of data which were more sensitive or pseudonymized, which is, you know, utter bullshit. And they had a price list about this. You know, like you could see exactly how much it costs, and part of that price list was a reseller price as well, which is like 10 grand a year or something. So anyway, there's a Twitter account called Med Confidential, and they were following the story and every day giving updates and hammering people and contacting the press about it. And they just did not give up. And eventually it got postponed and postponed again. It's still an ongoing story because it's sort of indefinitely postponed, but it might come back in some form. Anyway, the point is that this Med Confidential guys really, I don't know how they have the energy to keep going on this, because it is exhausting. The government or whoever it is, Google or whatever, they hide away the details about this kind of stuff in lengthy documents that are difficult for normal people to understand, and you have to really concentrate to read through it all, and then translate it into. So with the NHS Digital thing, right? There was a way to opt out, but there were two ways to opt out. There was type 1 opt out and type 2 opt out. Type 1 you could do with your local, you could do online, but that didn't prevent the data, your medical records, being shared. Type 2 was you had to print out a PDF and take it to your GP, which is your local doctor, and then they had to deal with it and be the data processor. And I had a conversation with my mum, and she had a conversation with her 70-year-old friends, and they were like, "Oh no, we've opted out, we're fine." And she's like, "No, you haven't, because it's." And this Med Confidential guys were like kept on hammering it home, and eventually they had an effect. Wow. I don't have the energy to do that. I can moan about it and like once a week on this show, and you know, shout on Twitter a little bit, but yeah, that's it's hardcore, man. So
well, we talked about something like that.
Give up.
Early on, we talked about something like that. I think it was Discover Card, if I remember correctly, that in their terms of service, it said you can opt out, but you got to call this number and request a form and submit it in triplicate and get it notarized. And like, what are you going to do? Who's going to do that?
Yeah. And it's, I think even you said that was pretty bad, right?
It was pretty bad. I'll share two
Yeah.
other points from the
All right.
article. The tweet by DuckDuckGo referenced a study that showed 80 to 90% of people don't want to be spied on for more relevant ads. And I thought, like, yeah, obviously, most people say that they don't buy on emotion, and most people say that marketing doesn't work on them. There's a huge gap between stated preferences and revealed preferences. If the question is, do you want to be spied on? Yeah, the answer is no, I don't want to be spied on. If the question is, do you want to see relevant ads, then you're much more likely to say, yeah, I want to see relevant ads. So I don't think the framing of the question really accurately represents the trade-off.
Fair enough, but I mean, I think perhaps "do you want to be spied on" is more accurate, so the answer is more accurate as well. I don't know. What do you think, Jon?
I
Do
think
you think it's
I think DuckDuckGo, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Peter, I believe DuckDuckGo take kind of an anonymous approach to their advertising tracking. They do monitor searches, they monitor for trends, but they don't attach it to an ID, which is fantastic, right? This is how we should all be on the internet. Is yeah, sure, you can track all my data, don't assign it to me, don't use it against me. I saw a really messed up Reddit post. It was about an addict that was talking about the things that he used to use, and it started pushing these products to him. This is how disconnected it is from knowing, because it doesn't know. All it knows is keywords, right? It sees that you're a weed smoker in Canada, and you stop smoking weed, but you still talk about it because you're recovering or something. And now these companies are starting to push you weed ads. It's totally absurd, and there's no fine line. How do you opt out? I have an Android phone. I look at my Android news reel, and anything that I Google or search shows up there. If I start searching for a
oh
new
god,
product,
tell me about it. I'm sorry, but my wife is logged into my account, and every time I go on YouTube, it's full of like guinea pig adverts and makeup stuff. Like,
yeah.
sorry,
Guinea
carry
pig
on.
makeup.
No, so
You're making a serious point.
well, do we want to be spied on? No one wants to be spied on, but there's I guess a lack of morality in these trackers, and this is something that doesn't really get brought up very often. It doesn't get looked at, and that's a huge problem. Someone who tried to have a baby, and they couldn't, and now they're using support groups online and searching for them, and all of a sudden it's pushing them baby formulas to buy. So it's never ending, the scenarios that can be played here, and that's a huge problem. So do I want to be spied on? No, obviously no one does, but these advertising companies could, they, I think, have a moral obligation to take a closer look at the algorithms that they're deploying. Will it be changed because we're talking about it? Probably not. But with time, DuckDuckGo and companies like them might be able to get us in the right direction, at least.
Well, it's so, at least in the US, a corporation has a fiduciary obligation to make money and nothing else. They are amoral. Now, this is a little bit different for privately owned companies and for individual marketers, but there is no morality to it. They're just there to make money. If they can make money by tracking you and pushing you stuff that's bad for you, then they're totally going to do that. I think I've said this before, but I heard Joe Polish describe marketing as being like a gun. You can use it for good or you can use it for evil. It's just it depends on whose hands it's in. But to what you just said, like, there was a whole fuss over targeted ads in Gmail based on the content, and it was framed as Google is reading your emails. But it was, I mean, not somebody at Google reading your emails. Is it the same thing?
I hate to use this point, but if Edward Snowden taught us anything, it is that if a company has the capability to deploy something that automatically reads your emails, then shouldn't we assume that they can also individually read your emails? It's a tough question where humanity's comfortable. If you have, the argument of you have nothing to hide, why should you worry? I believe you guys have spoken about this as well.
Once or twice, yeah.
Peter loves it when I make this point, but shouldn't you already be assuming that somebody's going to read your emails because they're transmitted in plain text?
Okay, look. So this is my this. Oh,
Here we go.
I can't help myself. Honestly, every time.
And I'm not trolling you. Like that's.
Oh yeah, that's what a troll would say. I always think about like being in the pub and having people talk about you behind your back. It sucks. Nobody wants it. So there's social etiquette. There's like, you don't do that. And the proper way to deal with the situation is to talk to someone to their face, or I'll be straight up and ask them. It happens that people gossip and stuff, but it's shit. Nobody likes it. It shouldn't happen. Them's the rules, right? And if you people keep doing it, then you stop talking to them, and you cut off their access to the information. They can still find out from other people secondhand and whatever. But like, I don't know, man.
But in this case, it's like if John and I wanted to talk about you. So I wrote something on a note and then handed it across to John, but you had to hand it to him to see the thing that I wrote. And you could look at it and see what I wrote about you before you handed it to John. Like, why would I write the note knowing that that's how it's going to be handled? That's my fault if I do that.
Yes, I suppose. I mean, I don't know.
I love these analogies. Okay, let me make one more point about, or sorry, one more thing from the article. Later in the article, they say research has shown that up to 52 companies can theoretically observe up to 91% of the average user's web browsing history. And 600 companies can observe at least 50%, which is incredibly disturbing. But still, I'd say there's a difference between companies using tracking to target their own customers and leads, and there's a difference between that and then mass collection of everyone's user data for reselling and for surveillance. Like, does that distinction matter to you?
Kind of. Yes. No. I mean, I don't. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
What is the distinction? Well, what is the distinction? How hard is it for me to purchase this data? I know for a fact it's not difficult. How hard is it for me to associate a random tracking ID with Peter or with Mike? It's not that difficult.
No. But you can't, the way the internet works makes that a requirement. You can't access a site on the internet without identifying yourself individually to, electronically, not necessarily in an easily identifiable human form, but you have to do that. There's no way to use the internet without saying, I'm me and I'm here and I want data from your server there and you're going to send it to me. And this is how you send it to me.
Well, we shouldn't.
Everything else stems from that.
We shouldn't say that it's impossible to do this. Of course, I can jump through 10 hoops to anonymize my data.
Yeah.
Is that ease of use though?
Right? And is it even really possible to do it completely? I don't know. But for most people, they're not going to come anywhere near that. I mean, you're talking about what, just to make up a fat figure, 1.3% of the population able to do that.
Well, it's always it's a balance. It's an equation between how much effort somebody's willing to put into, how much time and effort they're willing to put into, breaking through that and identifying you, and how much time and effort you're willing to put into trying to hide it. You can use Tor and proxies and browser fingerprinting, randomization things, and you could use a text. I don't know. There's a ton of different things you can do. Like when you walk into a shop, you could wear a hat and dark glasses, or you could get plastic surgery. You can really go to extreme lengths. But someone still might identify you from the way you walk or little tick that you've got. There's always some details, and it just takes more effort.
My position, as it always is, you should assume that you are being tracked online no matter what you're doing. Okay, do with that what you will.
Okay.
So I think a good analogy for being tracked that people forget is, imagine a person, faceless, random, walking behind you at all times. looking over your shoulder. They look at your phone. They'll look at you. They look at where you walk. They look at what you buy. All of this is tracked. Now, if we use that physical contact of this is just happening all the time. You have someone behind you all the time, right now, for us as well. They're constantly there, just watching.
And
what are they
what
doing
if they
with
had
all
a
that
microphone
information?
and camera the entire time?
Right.
Right.
But I choose that. Everybody chooses that. We're all walking around with microphones and cameras. Nobody has to be behind
100%.
us doing it covertly. We just volunteer for it.
Did it. Most successful surveillance program on earth. Smartphones.
Here's the one stat that Mike doesn't believe, I think, which is that most people don't realize it's happening. And Mike's like, well, why not? How do they not realize?
Whatever. They don't realize it. That doesn't change the fact that it's happening. Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
I think it's
law, though.
You know, like walk into a store and steal something and just be like, I didn't think anybody was watching. What's the problem? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah. So
I think
now
today, 2021, more people know than they care to admit, and many are just complacent.
Which comes back to my point about why I thought that article in Forbes was notable, because it's the public visibility is growing.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we do this.
Hey,
show.
we wrapped it up.
That's a good wrap. Yeah.
And I'm here to defend surveillance.
Right.
So we are now over half an hour into the show, or close to half an hour into the show, and we have covered 20% of the stories that we have on the rundown. So this was related. All I'm going to say about this is, Peter, I'm using Brave web browser now.
Oh my word!
I know.
Dear Lord.
I know.
But why? You have nothing to hide. Why do you care, Mike?
Nice.
Well, so it was stimulated by the Chrome article, to be fair. Okay. However, I am not using it for privacy. I'm using it for ad blocking. But that actually is my concern about it, is that, yes, they have a model that allows users to contribute to creators that they like, but there's a barrier to that. Most people aren't going to set that up. And even if you do, it takes affirmative action to give somebody a tip. So I feel like it's unfair to creators, as is the ad blocking software that I normally use, but this is their entire business model. And on the surface, it feels like they're profiting from other people's content, which I don't love. And I know they've got that built into their model. You can make donations, you get points for tracking, all that. I'm a little skeptical of that.
Okay, all right. Look, I admit it's not perfect, but it's a start, and I think it's one of the better starts that is available right now. So yeah, good for you, Mike. Yeah.
And you've made the argument that you have to earn it, and okay, I'm on board with that. But for me personally, it's not about the privacy so much as the ad blocking, which I don't know. I feel like
is
a
giving
traitor
you
to other
privacy
marketers
through a proxy.
And
by accident.
You are a trader, and you're a trade trader.
I know. I feel bad about it.
Do you know what? Do you know what I find hilarious? I get these emails like once a week. It's from marketing companies who want me to remove them from their domain from my
interesting.
They're like they email me and they say, hey, can you delist, I don't know, doubleclick.net from your list? When people trying to go to our webpage, they can't see it. And I'm like, so someone has installed an ad blocker, they've gone to your ad company homepage and they can't see it, and they're not able to unlist it. And I mean, I do delist them because according to my policy, they shouldn't be on my list, and it's only for servers which are dedicated to serving ads or tracking blah blah blah. But like, come on, guys, you work in this industry. Like, is it really such a surprise that people with ad blockers are gonna? Anyway, okay.
All right, we've got some ground to cover. Who wants to talk about Razer?
Ooh, fun.
Yeah.
Is this
John?
John, you want to introduce this one?
Yeah. That's
let me bring it up for you. All right,
sure
you.
thing. Razer, one of the, if not actually the biggest video game peripheral company, had a 0-day vulnerability that caused it was a privilege escalation bug by plugging in a Razer mouse. Once the mouse plugged in, it initiated a download of, I think the software is right there, Razer Synapse, and it did so with system privileges. System, also known as root, admin, whatever you want to call it, basically gave Razer complete control of this machine. And the fun part is that you could spawn a prompt or a terminal from this directory that it was downloading to with these admin or root permissions. So the reason this is a fun article to or subject to talk about is the kind of name and shame that the researcher went through.
Yeah.
He reached out to Razer. He said, "Hey, I got this 0 day. I'm just reporting it. Maybe a bounty for me." And Razer were radio silent. I guess he probably prodded a few times, and then he publicly disclosed. Now, as Peter is fully aware, publicly disclosing vulnerabilities is usually looked down upon to a point, right?
Yeah.
I believe security researchers, this is debatable, but like to take a between 30 to 90 day window to get an initial response, and then work with the company to solve this problem responsibly. If you don't hear from the company, what are you supposed to do? One side of it is you can sell this exploit potentially for a lot of money. Another is slightly less nefarious or malicious, and you publicly disclose it, shaming them to the world, and which worked very effectively against Razer. They reached back out, they had a whole statement about it, and they offered the researcher a bounty. But it is an interesting topic.
Yeah, I think we talked about a case similar to that with Microsoft last week. But so in this case, is this really a Razer bug or is it a Windows bug?
Yeah. No, it's a Razer.
100% a Razer bug. Yeah, I think it's the same. It's the same. Like, we shouldn't blame the underlying operating system here for the way it works. It should be designed with security in mind, or secure by design.
It feels like a security vulnerability in Windows, though, that a company can do that.
Well, go ahead, Peter.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, an installer is going to have admin privileges at some point to be able to perform its job, right? To me, it's very similar to the thing with Zoom, which I think I mentioned the other day to you, Mike, was that Zoom's installer on Mac used to do all its kind of like admin stuff as part of the pre-install script. And the intention of the pre-install script was to kind of set up the environment for installing a package. So it didn't have any prompts there as part of the standard Mac, the way that the Mac installer process works. It still doesn't, I think. But when it was revealed, the reason Zoom did this because it was quicker and you didn't have a prompt. It just made the whole process easier. And when this was revealed, there was a big news article like Zoom uses malware-like techniques for installation, and they removed it. And so Zoom fessed up, and they were like, "Yep, that's wrong. Shouldn't do that." Okay, I think this was at the beginning of the pandemic, right, when they suddenly got really popular.
Right.
But in this case, if you install software in Windows, there's a prompt to elevate to admin permissions to be able to do that. Are we saying that it bypassed that prompt?
No, we're not saying that it bypassed the prompt. We're saying that it spawned a persistent state of which you, a user or an attacker, could escalate privileges. This is bad, right? This is
without asking
really
the
bad.
user.
What you enable a couple of things that do not require admin. You right click and say open in command prompt here. And if you did so, as that article continues to describe the proof of concept that Bleeping Computer did, it shows that you could just become an admin right there and then. It circumvented everything. and that is very dangerous in the wrong hands.
Still feels like a Windows vulnerability to me.
Maybe Windows isn't secure by design.
That's yeah,
I guess
probably.
on some level, all security bugs are, abusing intended use, but they're taking advantage of
Set of
someone.
instructions, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Windows is doing what it's told to do. It has a feature where you can open a command prompt from open a process in a command prompt, and that's a feature.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a line.
Yeah, because we could dig as I could say, isn't this an x86 bug then? Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you?
Yeah, because it is allowing. I'll
Could
give
you?
you the the yeah, probably, but a similar or not similar, but a good comparison of a Windows bug is the printer spooler bug that you guys, I assume, have covered maybe.
I don't think so.
We haven't. Print
No.
Nightmare.
Yes, that's right. And this is shipped with Windows, right? The Razer Synapse is not shipped with Windows.
Yeah.
And the spooler service
God.
yeah, lousy nightmare, as the name suggests.
Yeah. Do you know what? The reason I didn't suggest this as a topic for us to cover, Mike, is because it was everywhere, and I just felt like people might have had enough of that particular story. It was a disaster. I mean, it was like it's been around for years and years, and was in the wild and actively exploited. And all you had to happen was have a print spooler available, and you're vulnerable.
And the solution was turn your printer spoolers service
Yeah,
off.
I know.
No printing.
You mean join the 21st century?
Yeah.
Why is it
electronic documents? Ever heard of them?
Yeah, but like, if you ever want to print something, printers are still difficult to set up. Why is that? Have you?
I haven't set up a printer in 7 years.
The last printer I set up was fairly plug and play. Literally just plug it, and Microsoft recognized it was a printer, downloaded the Windows printer driver, and yeah.
I always remember the worst ones being Brother printers.
I think that's what I'm actually running. No, Epson. Brother. Yeah, we got an Epson over here.
All right, so free printers, guys.
Yeah.
But so this isn't a new thing, though. USB devices have been a huge security risk for like probably ever. I remember back in the day, I had my IT company. You'd hear stories all the time of hackers or like security researchers dropping USB thumb drives in parking lots in hopes that some just random employee would pick it up and plug it into their network, and then auto-run does the rest. Like, it's the same kind of vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In principle.
Yeah.
Well, USBs, we've gotten better, but the farther back in the USB history that we go, the worse, right? We got auto mounting, auto running with privileges, just the worst of the worst. And even dumbing it down, something as simple as a keylogger, a hardware keylogger that goes between your USB cable to your PC to be later retrieved and fetch whatever was typed on it. It is quite the attack surface for sure.
It's funny that USB devices are actually one of those things which, in the spy movies and stuff, and they kind of plug it in and they get the downloading thing. Like, that's actually possible. Like, it really is.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
So we are
USB.
We are 100% going to go over an hour. I'm going to start cutting stories. However, we 100% absolutely want to talk about Australia. So who's going to set that up?
Yes.
Is that you, Peter?
Oh, can do. So this is the story about some regulation, a bill that was rushed through Australian Parliament in 24 hours, and it is horrendous in so many different ways. It gives the police the power to interrupt people's, to monitor, interrupt people's messages, or basically everything they do online without a judge's permission. and it's very broad. It covers serious crimes. It's intended for terrorism activity and CSAM prevention, but it's so generic that it can just basically be used for anything. And I mean, there's a few like tiny Hail Marys, like the laws reset after 5 years or revert after 5 years, but it's I don't know, it's so bad in so many ways. It rushed through in 24 hours. I mean, come on, guys. Like, if it was any good, then do you really need to do that? Like,
And just to give a couple details from the article, it creates three new types of warrants that police can use, all without a judge's approval. Network activity warrant that allows the police to collect intelligence from devices or networks that are used or likely to be used by those subject to the warrants. And that is the least maybe dangerous of the three. A data disruption warrant gives the police the ability to disrupt data by modifying, copying, adding, or deleting it. And then the third is the account takeover warrant that allows the police to take control of an online account like social media for the purposes of gathering information for an investigation. And they report that Australian companies, system administrators, must comply and actively help the police to modify, add, copy, or delete data of a person under investigation. And refusing to comply could end up, the person could end up in jail for up to 10 years, according to this article about the bill. So
Terrifying.
It's not great.
thank you for doing that much better than I did, Mike. I appreciate that. It's been a poor job, but it's one of those things, those stories that flusters me because it's so bad and it's so kind of like, just everything about this is so horrible. I want to kind of forget about it as soon as I can, but
yeah, this is
It's
one of
almost
those,
unfathomable.
like, yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
it
really.
brings their privacy, security, surveillance levels down to almost a rogue state. You know, this is what we're seeing with countries like Iran. This is what we're seeing with countries like North Korea, China to a degree, Turkey to a degree. Like, this is absolutely terrifying in a first world developed country like Australia. Just like you said, they just rushed it. Why even like, this is terrifying on so many levels.
Did you see the comment though from the sort of response from the government when somebody asked about what kind of safeguards are going to be put in place, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to have some very stringent and thorough checks to make sure that this isn't abused." And they were, what? So what are those checks exactly? We're going to have some very stringent and thorough checks to make sure that they're like it's the same. Well, we'll figure it out, kind of thing.
We got an internal team.
None of which
auditing.
involve a judicial review process.
Right. No.
Oh, that was the last bit. It was like, we're going to have a stringent and thorough checks, so the pro-privacy people don't need to worry. They don't need to. Like the I forget the term they use, but oh my god, it's like they can shut up. Like, we've got it covered. And there are zero instances of laws like this not being abused almost immediately.
Of course.
100% chance.
And the problem here, that to me at least, or probably to all of Australia, is this will now open up back doors all over the place. For every business run in Australia, they're going to probably have to create some sort of direct access gateway, tunnel, whatever you want to call it, for the authorities to use. It is a nightmare.
Yeah, not just the authorities, but that's the thing.
Exactly.
Once those backdoors exist, it's not going to just be the authorities.
Exactly.
I mean, if there's good news, it's that they're doing it out in the open, unlike in the US, where I am certain that's exact same kind of thing is happening. We just disguise it as FISA and whatever.
The national security letters in the US, right? Which are so secret that you can't even talk them. You can't acknowledge that you have one. You know about the concept of a warrant canary?
No.
You heard of this? So a warrant canary is where you put something in you put a statement on your site somewhere saying, we have not received any warrants that have required us to disclose information that we are not allowed to talk about. And then if that statement disappears, then then
Yeah.
you know that they've been served, but they haven't actually come out and said it. So it's a canary that has died.
Yeah.
That
Interesting.
lets you know that there's gas in the mine, kind of thing.
Wow.
Interesting.
It's terrifying, but very cool. A very
And
cool
it's
way.
actually, yeah, it's been used in, you know, in real life before, and yeah, warrant canaries. So the US has that, yeah.
I feel almost speechless over it. I thought we'd have more to say about that article, but it's almost just like so bad. Like, but
It
it's
really
terrible.
is dumbfounding. Yeah, exactly. It's hard to come up
I-
with words to describe how terrible it is.
And there's so little that people can do about it. Oh, it's the government who said, yeah, cool, thanks,
Yeah, I wonder what
carry on.
at this point. I guess I don't understand enough about the legal and legislative systems in Australia to speak to it, but I do wonder what their options are at this point.
I guess the theory is the same with most governments. If you don't like it, then vote them out of office next time around. Right?
Yeah.
Good luck, Australia.
Right.
And if you do like it, fix the voting system so that you don't lose next time is, I think, the lesson that we're learning here in the US, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Really walking
All right.
glass there.
Oh, mate. Right.
All right. So this is we are now committed to finishing on a fun note. We are not going to leave you hanging with Australia's terrible new surveillance systems. But this story that we're going to close with falls in the category of what my friend calls the obvious things that are obvious. So here you go, Peter. I think this is your story.
This is my favorite story of the whole week, not just the show. This is my favorite thing that I've read this week, which is online trolls actually just assholes all the time. Study finds it's an article straight out of The Onion, but it's real. They did a study, and apparently people who are dicks online are just dicks. That's it.
Which
yeah,
really should be the least surprising thing of all time.
Well, I think the argument has been that some people have made the argument that because it's so easy to be a dick online, it kind of like encourages people who wouldn't otherwise be dicks. But actually, it's not the case. People who aren't dicks, so you know, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, I know. It's well.
I think
go ahead,
I had a really fun trolling experience.
As the troll.
No,
I genuinely didn't know the answer to that question, John. So I don't know if that says anything
as
about
the trolley, as the troll. Me and a few friends have a Discord server. Discord, for the listeners that don't know, is a communication service for video games, instant messaging and communication, and we're all hanging out, playing video games, and there's a random person that we're playing with, so we invite them to our Discord server. And instead of joining, it was insane. Account after account starts joining the voice call, and they all have the same profile picture with the same name, and they're all playing. I will not describe the profile picture, it was very, very bad, but they all started playing the national anthem for Nazi Germany.
Oh,
very and as soon as I kick one of them, a new one joins. So it was obviously an automated bot system that just kept hammering in new people or new accounts, new automated bots. But I had to I had to lock out the whole server, kick them all out without new invites being able to be generated. But I gotta say, the effort put into this troll was very high. And then all they wrote to us in the game was, don't invite random people to your server. So it was almost in a gray hat way, like be more careful with who you invite.
You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So that was probably the most original trolling I've ever seen.
Yeah, I found it difficult reading or just thinking about the article. I think about drawing the line between assholes and people who just believe or claim to believe just stupid things like anti-vaxxers or QAnon or that a national election was rigged without any evidence whatsoever. This is not the political show. That's just my own individual view. But
Mike's own opinion show.
I know. The thing that I had heard somebody say recently is that, like, we know about projection. You tend to project onto others the things that you think and feel about yourself. And the challenge is that for reasonable people, projection is thinking that others are reasonable. And so I'd always get stuck with the question of like, but do they really believe that? Or are they just saying it to troll? And it's not just online because, you know, we have a lot of that cynical, manipulative behavior in real life. And I think that really goes to the heart of the study, is that a lot of people are just assholes. They're just assholes with a lot of megaphone than they might normally have.
Yeah. I think that's basically it, unfortunately.
And I think that's part of what makes...
sad.
Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
No, go ahead.
It's part of what makes the challenge of social media so difficult, because you think like, you know, how do we deal with these people online? But really the question is, why are so many people assholes? Like, should everybody be able to participate online? Yeah, they can. I think the difference is just that normally they would be out irritating their neighbors or coworkers or whatever, and now they have the ability to jump on social media and connect with millions of people.
Right.
And you know, bad news is more fun. So if somebody wants to be a troll, then we laugh along and rejoice in the schadenfreude or whatever, and everyone's having a good time.
I was talking to a friend of mine this week, a guy, he's a reporter for CBC in Canada, and he, I was just catching up with him, he's an old friend, and I asked him, like, hey, man, don't you find this stuff exhausting? Because, you know, he's covering the wildfires up there and COVID and and he's like speaking to people who have had to leave everything in their house, which is now burning down across the field over there. And people who've had, you know, their relatives die in hospital because of COVID and stuff like this. And he's actually talking to me. I was like, man, how do you do it? How is it exhausting? And he said, well, actually, it is exhausting, but it's better than not having any news, because nobody wants to hear about the fifth time a cat was rescued from a tree. So it really is that this kind of like bad news is what people want to hear about, which is like, and do you know what? I'm guilty of it as well. I when news about puppies comes on, I kind of switch off and don't really pay attention. But when I hear about you know, a national disaster, I go and watch it and then read about it and then talk to my friends about it.
So bad. It's gotten so bad that there is a subreddit dedicated just on Reddit called Our Uplifting News.
True.
Everything in the news is being portrayed, or all things that are being portrayed in the news have a negative light.
Oh God, hang on. Wait. What are we doing here? We started off with a fun story.
Look at that.
And now it's talking about, now we're going like
cynicism, nihilism.
We'll talk about
everything in between.
Commercialization in corporate media ruining journalism because it's entirely ratings driven, and bad news gets ratings.
Okay, next week we've got to have one story which cannot possibly be subverted or circle back to like how we're all gonna die soon.
Challenge accepted. Hold my beer.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just talk about like happy hackers, you know.
I will find a way.
Just the good guys.
I will find a way.
Very skeptical that this is going to happen, but let's come on.
No. Oh no, you find an article and I'll prove you wrong. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I see.
I'm not part of the solution. I'm part of the problem.
Of course.
I'm willing to agree to that with that statement. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Okay, I'm glad I have your endorsement. That's awesome. This was a lot of fun. We ended up cutting, I think, only one story to keep on time. It was cool having Jon here.
Yeah, it was great.
I liked the technical perspective. We got, like, you were a little bit more technical. Peter's very privacy focused, and then I'm, you know, just here helping to.
Just wrong about everything, Mike. Come
throw
on.
Everyone.
One of these days We'll get you. We'll get you.
Yeah. So, John,
I like
you
having
said
some backup.
you like what?
I like having some backup for a few of my points here.
Yeah.
Right, John?
Yeah,
You
just
got
as
me?
I'm just your hype man, just standing behind you. Go,
Yes!
Peter, go, 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 go.
Instead of me just throwing
Yeah.
my hands in the air, like,
Yeah.
we're all being tracked. Who cares? Doesn't matter. So, John, if you watched a couple episodes, you know that we typically end the show by singing your favorite childhood song. So go ahead.
Thank you. Let me go get the guitar and the foot drum, and the harmonica with the neck brace. I'll be right back.
There we go. There we go. All right. This was a lot of fun. Anybody have anything to plug? People should subscribe to the channel. What you got, Peter?
Yeah. No, I was going to say, John, you got stuff to plug, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Password hygiene is very important. Look up password entropy, enable 2FA, preferably not using SMS. That's the plug you guys were referring to, right? Like things just like good. No, I don't have anything.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I thought you had something or other. Okay. Well, you can plug this now.
Yes.
To everyone else. So.
I use LastPass for my password. All lowercase, one word, no spaces, LastPass for everything.
Okay, that was fantastic.
That was good.
Actually, so good.
Yeah.
First time I've ever heard anything like it.
Works really well.
Easy to remember.
Easy to remember. That's right.
Because it's your
all
last
right, guys.
pass. Yeah.
Yep. We all set?
Yes.
All right.
Excellent. It was fun.
We're done. See everyone later.
Bye. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Yeah.